Welcome to A Tale of Two Scribes. I'm your host, Eric P. Bishop. This is a place where interesting people come to talk about their creative outlets. As for myself, I'm an author, podcast host, travel enthusiast, and lover of the outdoors. If you'd like to learn more about my published works or adventures, go to my website, ericpbishop.com. I hope you enjoy the show, and please go out and support today's guest. Thanks, and enjoy the journey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, your eyes and your ears are not deceiving you. I am not Eric Bishop, but this is A Tale of Two Scribes. And the reason that I, Ama Adair, am sitting in the host seat tonight is because Eric is a guest in his own show. So it would be a little bit self-serving if he just sat around and talked about how awesome he is. So he allowed me this opportunity to hijack the program, and then I can talk about how awesome he is. Eric, thank you so much for trusting me with this. I appreciate it.
I'm super excited to be a guest on this podcast. I've heard of it before.
You know, it's making the rounds. There's a tiny following, but it's really gaining some traction. I think you might have heard of a few people who've been on it.
One or two.
Just one or two. Well, you have been very busy. I mean, this podcast is just one of the myriad of things you're doing, but one of the things we really wanted to hammer in on is Supreme Justice. You have a new book coming out. Look at that.
It'll be out the day after we air this podcast, actually. So it'll be out tomorrow, we can say.
Oh,
hey,
yes, because we are in the future, so we can see these things. The world has not come to an end because we all need to get to the next book in the Body Man series. And you went a little different direction with this. This isn't just Nick Jordan being the Body Man. You have a little fun with another character that you introduced in the first Body Man.
Yeah, so one of the things, and I've talked about it before, I think in earlier on, like when I started doing podcasts for the Body Man or doing interviews and stuff, is I wanted to create a role, not a main protagonist that carries every book. And in doing so, the other thing I kind of wanted to switch up what traditional authors do, and again, I read traditional authors, and that's how I became a writer myself, is I didn't want to have the focal point always on one character. I wanted to create a world where the minor characters sometimes kind of step in and step over the main protagonist, whoever the body man is at the time. So that's kind of why with this one I decided I think it's Mercy's time to have a little backstory.
Now, did you decide that or did Mercy decide that? Because she doesn't strike me as the type that's going to sit back in the shadows.
She definitely whispered in my ear and I listened.
This is probably a good thing. It might be a little bit dangerous not to listen to a character like that.
I think the blade mark is gone that she put to my neck. I think I hid that well with my whole.
Well, you've created a universe. You have, and I like that idea as much as I like Nick Jordan. I like the idea that it's more about the world you've created and the positions that you've created than it is necessarily about the characters, because that opens up a breadth of opportunity for your storylines.
Yeah, it really does.
Yeah, you didn't shy away from that in Supreme Justice. You dove in whole hard with, it's Mercy's viewpoint for most of it, but you still get the body man action. How was it to write such a, let's just say, a little bit crazy female character, slightly?
So what's interesting about this story is, and we've talked about this offline, but originally when I devised this idea for Merci, it was going to be a complete standalone. I wanted her to have a backstory. And so what's interesting about this one is I actually started writing this novel before I wrote Breach of Trust. It was actually the first thing I wrote post divorce. So I went through that kind of a dark period in life, which might
Actually makes totally sense to me now.
Which might explain why some of the stuff is in this book. But no, I went through that period of life, and I wrote, but I wrote very minimal for about a year and a half. It was before the Body Man deal came out, before I got the contract or anything like that. I wrote very little, and I didn't keep any of it. I literally deleted the files. I'd write something, I'd feel very angry, I'd write it, it wouldn't feel better, so I would delete it. And then what's interesting is this story was kind of brewing in the back of my mind over the course of a couple of years. And ironically, literally the day I came out of mediation for the divorce, I was a attorney's office in Spartanburg, South Carolina. I came out and it's cliche-ish, but I felt this burden come off me. And I think it's because I knew kind of what my future was going to look like. I knew when I would see my kids. I knew financially what I would and wouldn't be able to do. And I didn't have the kids that night. but I went back home to where I was living and I started writing this story. It just started coming out, and I got about 30 something thousand words into it so that was in December of 20, December of 20. So I got about 30,000 words into it before, and this is the other ironic thing, on the day, and again, this isn't pro-divorce conversation. Try to make a marriage work for sure, but ironically, this is how it worked out, was the day my divorce papers got signed, finalized, everything. I got the email from my attorney saying, "You're officially divorced. Here's a copy of it." 3 hours later, I got the body man deal, an email from the body man deal. Like on something I'd worked towards for years that I didn't get much help on the other end of my life, all of a sudden, boom, it came through. So I took Mercy's story and put it aside. It went aside, and everything for the next year became about the Body Man, the first book. Then I wrote the second book, and as I was writing the second book, I was always pulled back to, I've got to finish that Mercy story. So she kind of was, it was just this constant, like, in the back of my mind, this noise in the back of my mind of like, I've got to get back to that story. And so it took a couple years and a couple books, and I finally was able to bring her to the forefront, we could say.
Yeah, so just 30,000 words, just that was all that, you had the time to sit down and write before you got hijacked by the body man. That is really interesting to me though, that you walk out of a life-changing event, no
Yeah,
matter how you feel about it, that is going to change the direction of your life,
right.
and you turn to writing. I mean, we've talked about this too. It's
Yeah,
cathartic. It is
it
something
is.
that is not just a creative energy, it's a therapeutic energy.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I'm kind of getting how you were feeling about the divorce just by reading the pages, because I applaud the level of violence in here. I'm no stranger to that myself. I have no idea what it's like to write female characters that kill people.
Right.
But but in this case, you created a very, three-dimensional character. When you
Mhm.
first introduce Mercy, she's an assassin. She is
Right.
kind of cut and dry assassin. She is playing by her own rules, but when you delve into her backstory, you give us a lot more.
Exactly. Yeah, that was the goal. And ironically, she was the one character, not the one, but she was one of the main ones that I got responses from when the Body Man came out. So it kind of kept pulling me back to like, I need to get her story out. And when I wrote her into the Body Man, she was a one-off. I was like, I need this attractive, sexy, just person that can get in and do this thing. And it was very one-dimensional though. So I didn't know her backstory, and it kind of grated on me after the book came out, or after I finished my part before the book came out, but after I got it done, and I was just like, okay, why would she have that back? Why would she do that? So and it took some time, and then when it finally connected the dots in my head of what drew her into that seedy world, because I was like, why would someone follow that path? Unless you're an absolute psychopath, why would you kill people for a living for money? And the money's not her main objective. It's kind of the cherry on top in a way sometimes. But so I kind of had to dive in to figure out who she was and what she was. And the more I did, I'm like, oh, this has got to come out in a story someday. And it just happened to work out. And the other thing too, and I know we've talked about this offline, is as I was kind of going through this process with Supreme Justice and revisiting it over a year ago, I realized at that point that I kept trying to pull the body man in small little, like, just a chapter or two, very, very minor, for like, well, for her standalone, I'll have an interaction with the body man. And as I was kind of trying to then, I jumped back in, I'd written the 30,000 words at that point now, 4 years prior. Um, as I was kind of reading through it, even the first couple chapters, I was like, ooh, this would be a good spot to mention something about the body man. And I'm like, no, 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 this isn't the body man story, but he kept getting drawn into it. So then what I did last fall, late summer, is I decided, okay, at this point, instead of just having a standalone for Mare C and starting a third series, because I have so many ideas for her, how do I integrate this into the Body Man world? And I said, well, maybe this is a introduction to her backstory, but also a transition between Breach of Trust and what was going to be book three, but is now book four. Maybe this is the transitionary book where all this stuff's happening with Mare C, but the Body Man's got a whole lot of crap going on, and he's just kind of hinting at what's happening around the world, basically.
Well, that's another thing I like that you've done is, well, I guess we should also talk about the fact that, you are doing this yourself. You are your own imprint, you have your own company.
I
That
have a
gives you
ghostwriter. He's a New York Times best-selling author that's got nothing else to do, and I pay him an exorbitant amount of money to write these books for me.
Well, but it gives you creative freedom. Like you have
Yeah.
the author's note in Supreme Justice, which when people pick this up, I highly recommend they pay attention to because you do something that I think a traditional publisher would probably like slap you back down and say,
Yes.
sit down and don't do this. Bad, bad, Eric, bad.
Right.
Um, but because it's your imprint, it's your say, you have the end all be all approval, you can leave things open ended. And
Right.
that might drive some people crazy, but knowing you're putting out more, there's more stories coming, there's more. You really don't try to curtail your stories. You allow those stories to build
Hmm.
wherever they might go.
Thank you.
I think that's going to speak to a lot of people.
I hope so. When I first had kind of put that together and put the author's note out there, and I didn't have the author's note in there until, I don't know, after I had gone through it two or three times. And I'm like, I think I'm gonna get a lot of nasty grams from people saying, whoa, whoa, whoa. You brought up like five different things that aren't settled. Okay, you settled this one big thing, but you didn't settle all these other things. And so as the first thing when I sent the manuscript to my editor, I said, what do you think about the author's note? And so after a couple of weeks of going back and forth with some stuff, he's like, no, the author's note is perfect. He goes, don't, I said, should I move it to the front of the book? Should I have it in the back? No, keep it where it is. Everything's good about it. But he said, I think that will help your readers be like, ah, okay. So, if they make it to the end, they'll realize this one last page to read and go, ah, okay. So this is where we're going.
Well, it kept me from wanting to reach out and strangle you. So I assume that will also be the fact for other people because I was one of those people. I got to the end of your story and went, but, wait. You had this, you had this, you had this. And then, I saw that, well, you emailed me and said there would be an author's note. And then I
Yeah,
saw the author's note. Yes, excellent touch. But there are whole genres that just don't end. They're epic, epic stories.
right.
Think about the fantasy world. People love sprawling, epic stories that go on for thousands of pages. Why can't you do something like that in the thriller sphere? Because, well, real world, things never really end, they just transition.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, the other thing too, and I know we've talked about this before, is being indie publishers, doing things on our own. We have that creative liberty. Like you already referenced it, where maybe the big traditional publisher would have slapped my hand and said, "No, you can't end this way," or "You can't." Okay, this is a Mercy story, but there's not because I had that complaint with the Body Man, honestly, where I did definitely get responses from early readers and stuff, and it's like really amazing story, but the Body Man's not in enough of it, and I'm like, but that's the point of what I'm trying to do. I don't want to have the body man carry this first story completely. It's all about what is the body man role, and I want it to be more of a mystery. So I could see with this third book in the series them saying, well, it's not really a full body man book. They could give me some grief, and I the only grief that I get is maybe from some reviewers or email people and myself. And I don't have an overlord saying, we're not gonna do whatever for you, or we're gonna. I mean, I had a book rejected with when I was with a publisher. They flat out said not good enough to be published, which was crazy because everybody I had given the book to before the publisher, which a bunch of people got it before the publisher, are all like, so much better than the first book. And I'm like, hold on. Did the publisher read this second book? Did the publisher just really dislike me that much? Which is possible. Um, but it was just so you don't, and that's the side of it, and you know this just as well, is there's so much, I don't know the best word to use for it, but there's so much like opinion on stuff that's just personal opinion in the publishing world with readers and everything. So you're not going to please everybody. And so you have to walk that fine line of writing something that's true to the story you want to tell and not crossing over and saying, well, I'm just going to write something that I think is commercially viable or I think my publisher is going to love or whatever. It's like, as a storyteller, I think you're bound to what's inside you to try to let it come out versus thinking from a market standpoint purely of what's going to sell books, what's going to draw readers in, and whatever that. And so that's ultimately, if I'm happy with the finished product, and it sounds very, I guess, selfish in a way, but if I'm happy with the selfish product, then I've achieved my first objective. Now, can I make sure other people like it as well? Sure, absolutely. That factors into my thought process, which is why like people like yourself and other early readers got copies months ago, and they're kind of like, "What'd you do with this?" And I'm like, "What?" And I reread it and be like, oh, "Yeah, okay, I guess that could, yeah, I could see that point." So and that's what's great to have that feedback from others, that feedback loop, really in the indie world. And if you're in traditional, you have an editor you're working with that's giving you that. Um, but when you're not, then you're relying on others to help you out, basically.
Say I'm a big believer that, art speaks to the people it's meant for. And as an artist, it doesn't matter what you put into it, it somebody's going to hate it. It's just the way it is.
Absolutely.
You can't, there's somebody out there that says the Mona Lisa is, the worst thing they've ever seen in their life. And other people view it as the greatest thing ever.
It's really
So
small, by the way. It's not
I
very big
know.
picture. When you actually see it with your own eyes, you're like, really? This is like worth trillions of dollars? Really?
Yeah. But, art is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
And, one of the other Spear Talk channels with, Taco Tuesdays, Eric Bass, I really fully agree with him when he said he's gotten away from saying things are crap or like that's just crap. It's shit.
Mhm.
It's nobody likes it. And looking at it as it's just not for me because
Right.
somebody puts their blood, sweat, and tears into it, and as authors, we channel blood, sweat, and tears into the pages, sometimes literally.
Literally.
Paper cuts are no joke. Um, but just because it's not for this individual does not mean it's not good. So if I
Right.
read something like, yeah, it's just not my cup of tea, it's just not my cup of tea. Somebody still did something awesome
Mhm.
by putting out their art, by putting it out into the world and having the guts to say, look, I did something great.
100%. Well, and we're in this interesting time in human history where if you dial this back, I guess not 20, but maybe 30 years, you go back probably 20 to 30. There was a lot of people interested in writing, but there wasn't a lot of avenues for it. You had to go traditional. There wasn't really such thing. There was people that wrote books, yes, and sold them, gave them to friends and did stuff like that, sure. But you didn't have the medium we have now with Amazon and Ingram Spark and books, books to digital or digital to books, whatever that one is. All these different huge online resources now that people can become authors very easily. They can actually get their words out there, and it's a two-edged sword. So it's a blessing because the publishing industry has constricted so much. I mean, I was talking to, not to name drop, but I will name drop for a second. I was interviewing Kyle Mills a couple nights ago for my for your current podcast, The Tale of Two Scribes, and so we had an online conversation and we had an offline conversation, and I won't share those details of the offline conversation, but we definitely talked about the industry, and he was open to, and he's mentioned I think in other interviews where the industry he came into in I think the early '90s, mid '90s versus now almost unrecognizable. And we did have specific conversations of like money and this and that, like not money like what you make, but like what's available to authors out there. And he even said, and I think he said in other podcasts, is it's so much more difficult now to earn an actual livable income as an author versus 25 years ago. Because if you got a deal, if you got in with a publisher, you typically made pretty decent money. If the book sells, of course. Now your book can sell pretty decent, and you can still make like nothing. Like literally almost nothing. When you're getting 15% of the residuals of the royalties and all that stuff, you can go out and sell 10,000 books and make 20,000 bucks. Okay, nobody can live off in the United States, nobody lives off $20,000. I mean, that's like taxes if you have a house in New York State, in some counties. So obviously what's happened, since Kyle had come in is you've had this explosion of the digital world, which again is a blessing and a curse. Anyone can get published. It doesn't mean every book should be published. And so, and you know this too, and I know this with trying to promote our books, is we got a lot of competition out there. There's a lot of people trying to vie for readers to purchase their books. How do you stand out amongst that? I mean, the best thing you can do is write an incredible book that some person likes, and they tell another person, you get that going that way. But apart from that, it's it's difficult to stand out.
No, you're 100% on. with that. It really is. It's, once upon a time it was we're gonna only gonna put out the stories that will sell. Now
Right.
we put out the stories that need to be told.
Yeah.
But the downside of that is if you're trying to use it as a profession, the business side of it is infinitely complicated and it is a job. And so for
Yeah.
anybody who wants to use this as I'm going to make a livelihood doing this, you have to treat it like a job. It can't just be a creative outlet. Is
Correct.
it?
Well,
I'm lucky. I'm retired, so I can
yes.
use this as 100% my creative outlet. And so, while I understand what I'm supposed to be doing, I actively choose not to. So,
Hmm.
all those wonderful DMs we all get where they're like, "Hey, why don't we partner up and promote your book?" I'm like, "Yeah, no thanks. I'm good."
I've used the mute function in on X/Twitter a lot in the last 6 months, and I'd say on a daily basis, I get something from someone saying, "Hey, you need a dynamic book cover." And now I get a lot of emails. So I have my regular email that I always send people to is under my domain, eric@ericpbishop.com. It's out in the websites, no thing. Well, I also have an old Eric P. Bishop author at Gmail that I used to use prior. It's turned into a spam account now. If I check it on almost a daily basis, I have someone that says, "Hey, Eric, I found your books. Man, they're so dynamic. They're so great. They could use a fill in the blank movie trailer, a da 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 da. Reach back out to me." Or, "Hey, we'd like to." And I think I sent you one a while ago about movie rights. "Hey, we're such and such for movie rights." And those come about once a month. And when I first got the first one, I'm kind of like, okay, it's something's finally going to happen with the Body Man movie rights. I Googled the person. The person did come up. They had a Wikipedia page, but it looked a little sketchy. And I was just like, I think the delete function on this email will work just fine. If they want me bad enough, I'm out there. They can find me. And mysteriously enough, they never reached back out to me. So
No, it's strange how that works, and you can always tell because the emails always come off as formulaic,
yes,
and it just
100%.
there's nothing in here that says you took any time to personalize this, and those are usually the first thing they're just like, come on, man, wait, get me off whatever roster you've put me on.
Yeah,
But to tell
100%.
you, just because I've delved into this pretty extensively now, there are a lot of screenplay competitions that ask for unpublished manuscripts written by authors who are looking to have it transitioned into a screenplay. And you can actually enter a contest that way with your stories to have somebody then pick up as movie rights or potential TV rights. So just a little plug there. I might
I
send
know
you a
someone that does some screenplays every so often. I'm gonna have to probably talk with her about writing my screenplay for me, and we'll work out a financial deal because we talked about this offline about the podcast. I've hit, I think this year, market saturation or brain saturation rate of like so many eggs up in the air, and I've chose all these things. So this isn't a whining fest. This is, hey, I chose to do all this stuff. Okay, I think I've chose too much because like I be Supreme Justice comes out tomorrow. I have and I won't say the name of the next book, book four, on the podcast, but if you get the book, it tells you the name of the next book very clearly, so you'll know what book four is. I'll start promoting it in the fall probably. I've got to finish, not finish. I have to write 98% of that book, which I've already started. I was writing something last night on it. Um, I have another Omega Group book that I'm working towards coming out probably early next year. So probably like a early January release for Omega Group, and then a summer release again for the Body Man. There's an anthology that I don't know where that is now. I need to reach out to John here in the next couple of weeks and be like, okay, you're back from touring. What's going on with the anthology? Comic books, have two more comic books coming out. There was something else too that I forgot about. That something else was on the list, and I'm like, well, the podcast, but I'm just kind of like, yeah, I think I'm good. I think as much as I'd love to do, and I also have, that's next year for two of those books, and I have ideas and started some stuff for the following year, and I think I'll probably back off this two book a year thing because it's completely unsustainable. And the only way the Omega Group books have become a reality, and I'm able to do that as my second book for the year, is I wrote so much about them in the past that I'm basically going back and pilfering my poor writing from the past, fixing it up, adding stuff, beefing it up, making changes because my thought process have changed over the years. So I've got a framework already built for those that I can come in and in a couple months get something workable.
I am a huge fan of holding on to everything you write. We
Yeah,
have that saying, kill all your little darlings.
right.
Sometimes it's really hard to say goodbye to things that you love, but if it just doesn't work for that story, that doesn't mean it won't work for a future story. So it can make it a little easier when you're self-editing to be like, it's just not time for this right now. I'm going to save this for when it's perfect, and then it can help you, with that. Oh, but I like this so much. I don't want to get rid of it moments that we all have.
I think I have four partial books in the hopper. And I mentioned this a lot on the podcast. On computer that we're talking on, I have two folders. I have more than two, but I have a old books and books folder. So the old books is all the stuff I wrote prior to 2014. So probably like 1999, 2001, somewhere in that range
Hmm.
up to 2014. And then my books folder is stuff I wrote, like starting with my first Troy Evans book and the Body Man ones and all those, and the yeah, the amount of folders that are there. So I keep everything. So all those old books, I've gone back and looked at a few things. It's been probably about 5 years since I looked at them last, but I've gone back and looked at a few things and normally been like, "Oh, it's so stupid. Oh, it's so stupid." But you have to be stupid to be smart. You got to start somewhere. You have to educate yourself. You have to learn. And even the first couple books I wrote when I was taking it seriously, they were good stories. They were good concepts, but I didn't have that factor yet of knowing what I didn't connect the dots well enough. And not to say that I have now. I've far from figured it out, but I have a comfort level with it now. And I've also built up enough too where I've got a team of people I can reach out to and say, "Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think?" I mean, you've been kind of my chief helping person in writing my blurb, not my blurbs, whatever you call the little treatment things that you put on Amazon and all those things, because I suck at writing those things. I know what the story's about, but to try to take and put it into 100 words and three small little paragraphs, it's like, I don't know. He got a gun, killed this person, went after that person, the world almost ended, and what do you know? The nuke didn't go off, I mean, that doesn't work.
Nope, I completely understand. I'm doing the same thing now. You never really stop learning. Say
No,
I'm learning all this process all over again with, screenwriting. Luckily, I'm in school and have some professionals to help me with it. But,
right.
where you were talking about, doing the back cover, just little summary, kind of little
Yep.
pizzazz it up. You have to do the same thing with screenplays, which, by the way, I am more than happy to take any of these and start coming up with some ideas for. Just saying. But before we even get to that, I mean, you mentioned it a second ago about all the different things you've been doing. You have the Body Man series, you have the Omega Group. Those the core of what you do, but
Mhm.
you have been stretching yourself creatively in other ways, not just the podcast, but you mentioned these bad boys. If I can get it, oh no, it's not going to show. There it is. There, I can
You have
show
to
it.
block
Yep, there it
yourself
is.
to get it.
Yeah, I know. You got to see it. So wait, this was issue 3, wasn't it? So Cult of Machete.
Issue three,
Uh-huh.
yes, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Bottled Secrets. Look at you expanding into the
Ah.
comic book world.
I
How did
think
that feel?
issue four, I think, just came out recently. And
Mm-hmm.
the only reason I should know that, but I don't know that because I'm not in issue four, which was my fault. That was not Chris Cochran or Machete Comics.
Mm.
That was me not delivering on well, it didn't have a deadline, honestly. I originally did it as a one-off kind of thing, and I did
Mm-hmm.
make it like a suspense. There you go. You've got it right there.
I have all
Um,
4.
uh, and then he was kind of like, "Well, do you want to do more?" And I'm like, and I think it was last fall. I'm trying to remember when it was. I think I gave him that first story maybe in October or November. And I was just getting through Babylon Will Rise coming out, and I'm like, dude, I'm so busy that Christmas coming up, all that, I can't commit to it. So we finally agreed. I finally said, let me get you another story by, I think, January. So, and I had no clue where I was going with it. I wrote that first one off, and I didn't really have a clue. And then he said, well, if you want to write more than one, want to write three, I could do a trilogy thing. So I gave him the second story, I think in January. I literally just gave him the third story like 2 weeks ago, and I was 2 weeks late. Um, he did compliment me in the sense of saying, "Oh yeah, this will be great. I don't even need you know what you're doing. I don't even have to like we won't have to go back and forth on this, whatever." I was like, okay, awesome, cool, great. I don't as long as it's out of my hands now, I can move on to the next thing. And if there's a problem, reach out to me. But yeah, it's just cool. It's kind of one of those unexpected things. I had actually um, hired Chris to do something for a present for a friend, basically, to paint to do a drawing for a friend for a big monumentous birthday, which you know who I'm talking about, but I won't name drop that one. And so in the course of doing that, we kind of had some back and forth, and he was talking about the comic that he was doing with John. He goes, "Hey man, you want to do a story for it?" And I'm like, "Man, I've done short stories before. I've never done it for a comic, but it's like, yeah, cool." He goes, "What's it need to be?" He's like, "Just nasty horror." And I was like, "What the heck is nasty horror? I don't write nasty. I don't read nasty horror. I don't write it." So I had to get in that mindset. It took me about a night or two of kind of like just doing other things, and I what if I had this going on? Ooh, what if I had that? And so I just made kind of a detail. I do all my notes, unfortunately, for the most part. I do them in my notes section. I do that
I
because
do the same.
it's backed up. It's backed up through the cloud. I pay the whatever, however much they charge me a month to have everything backed up on my Apple. So my notes are backed up. But I just made a bunch of notes on it. And it's like, yeah, that would be interesting. So I finally then made myself over a course of like a weekend sit down and write this short story, Bottled Secrets. And it's fun. And I liked wrapping it up. I think, did I wrap it up? Maybe a couple of weeks back. So it's fun to get that third. And so that will come out. So it'll be issue 5 and issue 6. So there we go. Chris's artwork is just phenomenal.
Yep,
Total,
little sneak peek. That's all everybody gets. You're gonna have
that's
to
all you get.
actually
So
get
yeah,
the
I
comics
have
when they
looked at
sell
mine,
out.
but mine is actually in like the protective cover and all. So I did actually go through it, yes, but I don't want it to like I want it to stand this test of time. I was actually going to frame it. I was looking for like actually frames, and I'm like, yeah, if I frame it and put it on the wall, I'm really never going to look at it very often because how am I going to open a framed thing? So
Well, I actually opened mine for the first time the other night when I had John sign it. So I've got Chris' signature on it and got John's signature on it. So I will be hunting you down and making sure you sign it. So I will have everybody. And for me, that was worth opening the package. But up until that moment, I had not opened the
that's
package.
100%. Well, I've got the digital copy too, so that's how I read it originally. Was through he sent me the digital proof, months before it came out. I probably venture up towards the Nashville area here in the next. I got a buddy who had a kid, so I've got to make a trip. Now that I got the new car and stuff, I need to. Although I did see this morning, Highway 40, which Bruce and I took it when we came to Nashville here last month for ACDC. Big mudslide and flooding, and 40's now shut down again, and they don't have a exact time frame on when they're going to clear out. Like cars were like, I mean, it was kind of interesting pictures, and I'm like, I guess no runs to now. I mean, there's other ways to go, but it adds about an hour to the drive. So I was like, well, that
I'm
makes
starting to think there's a conspiracy with getting you to come west.
maybe,
That's this is just not right. Well,
maybe.
one way or the other, I will hunt you down and I will get your signature on that because for I'm a nerd, so yes, I didn't want to open anything up, but that was worth it. So
I,
I
hey,
will
I'm
need
just
to.
saying, Shinedown will be in this area in end of August. Just saying,
Oh yeah, yeah. I might stalk their tour
Greenville,
dates. So
South Carolina is not that far away. I know a guy. I
yeah, I would absolutely love it. But after taking the kids to Disney, it was like right now I'm still licking my wounds from that. But
Yeah,
the kids had a good time.
obviously I saw the pictures and we interact a little bit about that. So how tell me about the Disney experience because I haven't done Disney in about 20 years and I have not
It
taken my kids so far.
highly chaotic, but absolutely worth it.
Okay.
The kids had a blast. At the end of the day, that's what it is. Did the kids have fun? And the kids had fun, and somehow we managed not to kill each other. So 4 parks, 4 days, everybody survived. Nobody came home with wounds, and everybody was happy. Well, exhausted, but happy. So I call it a win. It
Did you
was,
s- did you see a lot of those I know they're derided online a little bit, the adults that go without kids that are Disney fanatics. Did you see a bunch of like Disney fanatic adults there?
oh yeah,
Okay.
they were there when I took my daughter there 6 years ago. So
Okay.
it's just a thing. But as somebody who speaks nerd fluently in multiple dialects, yeah, I can get that.
Oh
If you get
yeah.
to a certain
No,
point where like they have an Indiana Jones stunt show. I mean, come on. And then you got all the Star Wars stuff. You can't tell me that as an adult you're still not going to want to go and see the Millennium Falcon or go and talk trash to Kylo Ren as he's walking through the plaza. I mean, it's just
that is true.
there's things there that you just never really grow out of. And I never want to, because then what kind of fun is that?
I know exactly. They're doing a Cars Land, I think. The one in Disney World, I believe. They're getting rid of the old riverboat and whatever that area. I saw something recently about that. So,
Well, one thing's for sure that Disney does know how to do like the setups for the big worlds right. You know,
Yeah.
we did Avatar, and that was something I didn't do last time. My daughter was too short and too tiny to go on it.
Hmm.
We did it this time, and we all loved it. We waited forever for it, but we loved it. It was absolutely worth the wait, and they did Pandora great. So even,
Cool.
you know, even adults are looking at this like this is pretty slick. You guys
Yeah.
did it right. But
I owe the kids. We talked about doing it last year and didn't happen. And my daughter keeps mentioning my son's now in college mode, so Bruce is kind of like, he's not as interested. But I want to do the Wizarding World, Harry Potter. So do the I,
yes. But
so
hey, we're doing Orlando next summer. So as long as Aria finishes eighth grade, we're going to Orlando. So if you
oh,
guys want to make it like a whole
Orlando in the
thing,
summer.
yeah, but when else am I going to get the kids
Why don't you
there?
just burn in hell currently? I mean, it's so freaking hot. What in the
It
world?
it was hot. It was
Ah,
definitely hot, but you
ah.
know, it was
I
worth it.
appreciate the offer. I think we'll try to go like school time, just take Noel out of school for a couple days and do like a midweek kind of fall or spring or something. Of course, now I got to worry about his college. I've got to actually figure out. So my brother's actually getting married in Arizona, end of October. So I need to kind of logistically figure out like, okay, Bruce, when what will your Friday classes look like? We get you out of Friday class, fly in Thursday, and because I don't want to miss that. But it's like a weekend, it's like also, weddings, I'm like, maybe we can hit up the Grand Canyon for a day and then just show up for the wedding and then fly back out. Kind of, they haven't, I've seen the Grand Canyon a few times, they haven't. So I'm like, maybe we could do a nature trip with this as well. I don't want to just sit around a hotel for a couple days for a wedding. So
Or you find something new because I did see your list of adventures that you have on your website. I mean, I obviously I cyber stalk you when you put stuff out on social media too, but you have a nice little collated list of all these really cool places that you've been to over the
yes,
years.
I do. And I'm blessed. So the next words I'm going to say don't seem like I feel like I'm blessed, but it's a it's the tip of the iceberg. I've kind of now that I'm 48 and I've kind of been realizing it last couple of years of like all the places. I know some people have that travel thing where they want to hit up I think there's 196 countries if I'm correct. They want to hit up every 100 all 196. I bet you there's like 50 I could care less about seeing. So no, but I've only been to and again, only I know is a blessing. So again, take people, listen, it's a blessing to go to a dozen countries, but I've only been to a dozen countries. And in my mind, that's woefully not enough for what my dreams and aspirations. So it's kind of like, yeah, I've been to some really cool stuff and done some really cool stuff, but there's so much more. To me, that's the juice. That's the getting there and experiencing that stuff is what kind of just brings that smile to my face. But like with anything in life, it doesn't satisfy. You don't go get that experience, a little tease for what happens in Supreme Justice. You don't kiss the Blarney Stone and be like, I never have to come back to Ireland again. I mean, I'm tentatively looking to come back in the fall for a book tour, maybe, or a book event. So if I can swing that, that might be the main book thing I do for this release. But yeah, that was fun to do, but it was just kind of like cool. The adventure, though, I love finding that next adventure, whatever it might be.
Well, you know, my top two on my bucket list has been cage diving with great whites and to stand on the stage at the Paris Opera House,
Ooh.
like my entire life. So if you find yourself in any inkling of going to do something like that, you know, hit me up because then I can knock off. I mean, I think I was 10 when I decided that those were what I wanted to do, and I still haven't had the opportunity, unfortunately.
Well, here's where you need to come with me, and maybe Jake will want to go as well. So I think I've decided the skydiving's been on my list for years, and I keep not doing it. Another 10-year mark hits, or 45 or 40 or 35, another mark hits, and I'm not going to be able to do it for 50. So 50 tentatively next year is a ambitious trip with the boys, but New Zealand and Australia for 50. That's what we've got planned out that I think we're going to do. So I've never been that part of the world. But I think the skydiving, which could happen there, I think the skydiving needs to be over Dubai. I think the Dubai
Oh,
with that
yes.
setting, I've
Yes.
priced it out. I know how much it's to fly there. I know how much to skydive. It's reasonable. It's doable, but I don't want to go do it solo. So that's one of the things that I might have to get someone to be like, let's go to Dubai and skydive and spend a couple days there and I'll be good. Whatever.
I would volunteer. I spent 7.5, almost 8 months in Dubai, I will be more than happy to show you around. It's like
Okay.
I know where all that stuff is. I can show you how to do Dubai right. But also for skydiving, if you just shoot down to Cape Canaveral there in Florida, they used to, I'm not sure if they still do, but they used to boast the world's highest tandem skydive, which
Really?
I did.
Oh, you did.
Oh yeah, and you get to do it right there with, Cape Canaveral in the background. It was a
Well,
really, really cool
okay.
little flight.
That's not bad. I would say I don't want to go to like Greenville or Charlotte, or I don't want to go to like regional. I don't know. I want to do somewhere with a unique backdrop. Like I saw years ago, and they probably don't do it anymore. It was one of the earlier seasons of Amazing Race where they had a skydiving thing, and they landed right there in the like obviously not deep, knee length in the water in Hawaii. But you're going you're coming down the canopy and you're going, you just looking down, you're seeing Hawaii, and then you land in the ocean. I'm like, now that's a pretty cool place to skydive versus landing in a field five miles from my house. It's like I've seen that field before. I don't want to. Who cares about Greenville or Spartanburg or Charlotte?
Well, actually, this is a good place to go ahead and mention your contest because you have this, arc of Supreme Justice that you've already signed. And it's a pretty slick little signature page you have here. And, I think I'm going to throw my John Hancock in
It
there
needs
as
your
well.
signature as well.
It
Yes.
does. And oh, and then the really, really freaking cool Bodyman coins. These are, like poker chips, but these are legit. I really like these. And you were going to give this away to somebody who's watching YouTube and watching this video on YouTube, as long as they
Mhm.
what? Comment, I
Leave a
suppose.
comment, win a book signed by Ama Adair and Eric Bishop. The dual signature. It'll be worth trillions one day. Trillions.
Absolutely. Well, they can also comment like, where should you skydive? I mean, we can get you like a Bodyman t-shirt. You already have your Make Reading Great Again t-shirt. There you go.
Yeah.
You can either do that, or we could do something very special with the Supreme Justice on it. Get it on a t-shirt and go skydiving with it. Like have that filmed moment where you're like Supermaning out of the side of the aircraft.
Can you do so? That's one of the things I haven't looked enough into it. So could I do that? Could I order a custom t-shirt and then like with everything that you're strapped in, would you be able to see it okay?
Well, as long as it's like right here, because the harness goes down like this and then across your chest. So if it's a little higher, like
Okay.
I'm wearing a Spear Talk shirt, of course, so you can see just the top of the logo. So if it's
Got it.
really
Okay.
high, and then of course you can pay the package. Why wouldn't you? I did this where they have, the guy wears, a little camera on his wrist and they have somebody else jump out with you. So you get a couple different
Yeah.
views of you. So you have that moment of where you're looking out and they hang on the side and they watch you jump out. So you
Okay.
have that view of you walking up to the door
Right.
and then just stepping out of the plane. And it is awesome. And that would be a pretty slick way to advertise that. You falling, you take a screenshot of you in free fall with Supreme Justice right here.
It probably won't happen with Supreme Justice, but actually with book four, which you know the title for book four, that might be appropriate. That would be a cool. I could go do a cool. Maybe I'll get like a Brent or Barry like temporary neck tattoo, and I could just get it on the neck, and then I could be jumping. You could see the promotion right there or
I
something.
think you should go all in. Just get yourself a little Office of the Bodyman seal right here. Just, Barry's got Planet Zero. So,
I know you're not, but I'm still ink free, and I thought I was gonna get one post divorce. I even planned it out and all that, and then I just chickened out. I'm like, I don't know if I want something. I'm not ruled it out, but I kind of was like, nah, we're gonna move on with that part of life and not even do a tattoo. So of that at least.
yeah,
So
I am 45 and just got number 7. So, yeah, obviously I'm way behind some of the people we know, but you are never too old for a
oh, you're
tattoo.
never too old. No, I just whatever it's gonna be, it's gotta be something I want us to look at when I break the record, for age, and it hasn't, drooped too bad. So
Well, what that the oldest person just died, what were they, like 110 or something like that? You got some legs. You
maybe,
gotta go.
maybe my maternal grandmother lived to be in her 90s. My grandfather was 89, so there are some longevity genes in the pool. You just don't know. You don't when they shake that little mixer up, you don't know which ones you got. That's the problem. It's like, what if you get the like really, the one that, gets the Widowmaker at 52? It's like crap, jeez.
Yeah, hey, as long as you're out living your life, which, anybody who's
Absolutely.
checked out your adventures page has seen you clearly have. Although I think I saw some that those were some really young pictures. I mean, what were you like 2 years old when you were in Paris? You know, that picture of you standing in front of the Eiffel Tower?
I was 19 or 20 when I went to Paris. I was 19 when I went to Paris, yes. And that's the only time I actually have the only, I'm gonna take Noelle there. Probably I was gonna try to do it when she was 16, but I'll probably end up being 18 now. So I think at 18 I'll take her to Paris. So that's the plan at least. So I'll go back. It'll be a minute since I went back, but done London 3 times. London, and I'm kind of cool with London now. I wouldn't mind going back, but I've kind of seen enough of it now where um I'm trying to figure out other cities because if I go over in the fall for a book event, which I'm tentatively thinking of, and it might not work out. I got a lot of details to work out. If I go over, since I've already been to Ireland, I want to go somewhere else for a day or two. So I'm thinking maybe Barcelona or pick another city because the cool thing about that is to anyone that does do travel or wants to go over to Europe, getting over there is your cost. When you're over there, it opens up a lot of doors for you from a sense of you can jump on, and I did it to for Ireland for this trip last year. You can jump on Ryanair for like $49 and fly to Amsterdam or Barcelona. And as long as you don't have where they make their money is if you got 3 things of luggage. So keep the luggage in whatever city you fly into, put it in one of those, boxes that you can lock up at the airport and just put on a backpack and go fly to, Barcelona for a couple days and it's cheap.
It's an adventure. And that you can recharge those creative batteries doing stuff like that. If you never leave your hometown, I mean, I suppose your imagination has to be very strong to be able to
Yeah,
dream about all the things you haven't seen.
right.
But it does add a little bit of color and life and detail to writing if you have experienced life outside of your hometown.
Yeah, and if you kind of get out of your box, and if you're kind of willing to put yourself out there and do a trip, and again, I understand the costs of it, and until yes, I traveled before when I was younger. Then a stretch I didn't travel much, traveled for work, and so I always then integrated stuff I saw, like even some of the pictures that are probably on my website. I was on a work trip, and I would just stay an extra half day or fly in a day early and go do something. Okay, I'm going to be in California, or I'm going to be in Arizona or wherever for a week. I might as well go see something. So I'm fortunate that I was able to do that. But if you're able to get to a point where you can do some travel, and especially if you're a writer, if you can go somewhere and see it with your eyes, taste the food, smell it, it gives an authenticity to your writing. And then also you don't know what you're going to meet. Like so I won't say where in the story, but there's a scene that takes place in Ireland in the book, and there's a gentleman in there, Tony. Tony is a real person. Anyone that reads the book will remember this scene probably. Everything that happened in that scene, like the YouTube poster, everything about that scene is 100% what happened. It was just me though instead of the other character that's there. So I just swapped it out. But okay, you're not going to meet that person and have that experience unless you go to that town. So if you're able to go and meet people and have and the cool thing too with the amount of books that are coming out and are already out is I'm starting to get people that are readers in different countries that are like, hey, if you come here, reach out to me. And so be able to connect with people on an individual basis like that. It's like that blessing you never knew was going to happen when you got into this, that you're like, oh, it's so cool. I got a friend now over in Cork, Ireland, or I got a friend I met a couple years before that. I met a police officer, Dan, who is in London, and we met for a beer. We went to the first bar that opens in London, and I just completely why am I drawing a blank on what it is? The Market Porter. We went to Market Porter at like 6 a.m. and had a beer in this iconic British bar. Well, how did that happen? Well, it happened because I wrote a book and he happened to see the book, liked the book, and said, hey, mate, if you're ever in London, call me. And I reached out to him and we got together and we were able to meet up and have a beer at 6 a.m., which is way too early to be drinking a beer, but it was pretty good.
I say we used to have a thing that when I was still active duty, you couldn't claim that you'd been to a country unless you had a beer there.
But you
So
got a beer.
it didn't matter what time it was. We wanted to be able to put the stamp and say, yes, I was in this country. So and everywhere's got a bar. And actually, most places have an Irish bar, surprisingly.
The High Kings have a song about that, yes. Irish pub song. Yes, there's shoot within 20 miles of where I live, I think there's probably 3 Irish pubs, and I live out in the sticks too. So the Irish I think the Irish know this, so they're not taking offense at this, that, God created beer to keep the Irish from taking over the world. And I think that's a pretty legit statement. So the Irish will admit that if you actually get a couple Guinness in them or Murphy's in them, they'll admit to you like, yeah, that's why we haven't taken over.
It makes total sense. I have pictures of me in Okinawa at an Irish pub. I mean, it's just they're everywhere.
Yeah. Well, and if you go to a place like that too, I know there's different experiences you can have, but generally speaking, you're going to have kindred spirits there, people that you can just pull up next to, have a conversation. And again, that comes back to what we said a few minutes ago is kind of putting yourself out there is you don't know who you're going to meet in this life. And if you don't get out of your comfort zone, you're limiting your options in life. And you don't know. You might meet someone, especially if you're like into the writing world. If you want to write, if you write and you just stay on your couch and you never go to a writer's conference or you never get online and start interacting with people, your reach is going to be so small. I mean, even if, talking back to Kyle Mills, and we were just talking about how the market's changed. Kyle had said, I think while we were filming, not when we were offline, when we were online, is he would write the book and he'd give it to the publisher, especially when he was doing the Ludlum books. He would write the book and send it to them, and then he was literally done. He didn't even have to do like promotional stuff for it. And this is 20 something years ago. This is a while ago, where he said now, especially now that he's left the Mitch Rapp series and he's working on Fade In, one of his books from 20 years ago, back to that character, he's now realizing how much authors, and I know he had to do it for Mitch Rapp as well, but not to the extent of he has to do now for his own book. That's not under the Legacy series. So, man, if you want to get your name out there, guess what? If you don't like talking on a camera or talking to people, better fake it at some point because they're going to ask you to do it, or you're not going to sell as many books. It's just like you've got to put yourself out there.
Well, and the plus
Drink,
side of that is,
just
yes,
drink.
actually, yes,
Coffee though, but
I have my toothless mug today.
excellent. I normally go with the Yosemite one because that's where my heart is. So
Well, if you don't put yourself out there, you really don't know what could happen. I mean, I think you and I have been talking for 4 years now. So shortly after the Body Man came out.
yeah,
And, this has been a great friendship. And, we've had some adventures together. And,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
just one of those things. You gotta kind of go with it. You gotta throw your name into the ring, throw your work out there and see where it goes.
Well, and if you do something like this, you find your people, like especially if you're interested in writing, what you find, writers are of all different kind of, outgoing and
Crazy.
inclusive. Yeah, they're definitely crazy. All of them are a percentage of crazy, but you have to be able to come up with the stories, and then you have to be somewhat crazy to think someone wants to read your words. There has to be an element of that. Um, But what you end up finding is you've got this connection with someone. You've got someone else that is interested in that same pursuit of telling a story, finding an audience, being vulnerable. You put stuff like, and you know this too, you put stuff out there. I mentioned this to people, is stories are 100% fictitious. There might be some real events that you fictionalize, and I do that with my books for sure. But as an author, you put a little bit of your soul in every book you write. There's a little bit of you, whether it's just your characters talking or something that happens to a character that's based on something that was really something that happened to you. But there's always a little bit of an imprint of yourself on your stories. So you have to be willing to put yourself out there. But it's rewarding. It's rewarding when someone, reads your book and is just like, man, like when I get the ones that say like, and I got all of this from a couple early readers from Supreme Justice. It's like you hit me in a couple of the spots where I felt it. I got the feels for it, and I'm like, well, cool, because when I read those chapters, so do I. Even though I've read them now probably a dozen times in the last 6 months, I still kind of get to that point of like, okay, yeah, and that just shows you that you've created a character that's connecting with someone, which it's a pretty powerful thing.
I say it's still surreal to me in a lot of ways. And you probably feel the same way, but you've got how many books under your belt now? Let's see. So it's one, two, three, what, five?
I've got
Five?
five. Yeah, it'll be fifth one out. Yeah.
Yep. So, and that feeling, that moment that the link goes live, you still get the butterflies in your stomach. You still get that little it's excitement and anxiety all at the
Yep.
same time. Aria calls it excervis, excited, nervous, excervis. But that doesn't go away. And I think you're
Yeah.
right. It's because there is that level of, the personal element. Your work is now being put out for people to, engage with, and how's
Yeah.
it going to be received?
Right. Yeah, and you gotta at some point you upload that file or you give it to the publisher or you do whatever, and you just have to make peace with the fact of, okay, this is the story now. This is what people are going to say good things and bad things about, and yeah, you just have to come to peace with that. That was a hard thing for the first book. It's become easier. I think it was harder for the first book. Um, because I'd never experienced it before. So I didn't really know what those feels were going to be like. It's gotten easier with each one, but it's not been what's kind of shortened now is that first, and I've mentioned this in the past, every time, and I've got it back here, the first copy of the Body Man. So every time I picked up the first original copy of the Body Man, I got like emotional, like literally got emotional. I could feel tears start in my eyes. And for a while, it wasn't for an hour or two. That was the first like month. Yeah, I can pick the book up now, hit myself in the head with it, do whatever with it. I'm excited to have copies of it, absolutely. But it's kind of not lost the luster, but it's just the feeling of it is different. So it's that first, like when I open that first copy, the arcs mean something to me, but it'll mean a lot more to me when I get that first. Because I've said this to people too. I'm asking them to go out and buy my book, buy the ebook, buy the paperback, buy the hardcover. I buy the copy of each of my books straight from Amazon as well, full price. Yes, I buy discounted copies and I sell my website or do book events or whatever, but that first one I buy, I pay the full price like I'm asking everyone else to do. Those are the copies that mean something to me. And those are the ones those are the ones I keep. So all the ones that are actually on display, I've got other ones that I'll sell or I have, but the ones that are on display are the ones that I ordered, the first one I got from Amazon, and I write myself a note in each book. I don't sign it. I'm not like some egotistical masochist that signs my own books for myself.
I don't know. Being a writer has a certain level of masochism, so
Watch it, watch it. Your guest host, you might get rejected next. We might have to replace you for a next guest host. Come on now. No, no, no. But I write myself a note, and it's something so that years later, when I go back and look at that book, it's kind of what was in my thought process at that time. But it's mainly you're proud that you have that next book out. Every other copy doesn't mean that much to me. I've told the kids that if there's ever a house fire, you guys go out first. Absolutely. No question about that. Even all the material stuff doesn't matter to me. If we could grab those copies that are there, that would mean more to me. If not, that's okay. But those are the only ones that I really would want to keep. Everything else can burn. Everything else is fine. If you can get me those first copies, that would be cool. I've got notes to myself. But at the end of the day, if it's not possible, it's not possible. I travel enough that, who knows what might happen. But yeah, having those first copies, there's still that excitement factor of holding them. And then it fades, and then like as you know this, you're always on to the next project. Or if you've lined up multiple projects and overwhelmed yourself, you're already on to that next project while you're promoting the current project, which traditional publishers, that's 100%. I mean, because that's such a backlog. So if so we're filming this, what, about 3 weeks before, less than that, less than 30 days before Supreme Justice comes out, we're filming this. Um, I'm still tweaking the file, and that's not good to admit, but there's still a couple little tweaks because I've got basically about 2 weeks before till some of the formats need to be done. Amazon, I've got like till 4 days before it comes out, and I have to upload that file by. So I can kind of keep going back and going, or I might get an early reader that's like, hey, you got a typo on page, 273, third paragraph, this line
oh,
up,
that's a good point.
period's missing, or the word's misspelled, which 20 people have read this page now, and me have read it 15 times and I haven't seen that I spelled the wrong, TEH, that's not the. So you kind of get that sense, but if that's not the case and you're doing this through traditional publishing, you last saw that file probably a year ago or definitely 6 months ago. It's been a long time since you last saw that. Um, you're already writing the next book. And sometimes when you're promoting the book that's out right now, you've already finished the next one after it because it's been submitted already to the publisher a year out. So you might be starting the book for the third one in the series or whatever. So it's crazy how the process works, especially from an indie perspective versus a traditionally published perspective.
Well, I have to say, I love the idea of you writing a note to yourself with each of those books. Like, I buy my books too, just because I want to see what the experience is for
Mhm.
somebody who's ordering it. But I never thought about writing a little note to myself. It almost makes those like a little time capsule of that moment of, because I can agree, I pick up my first book and it doesn't hold the same, it's still surreal on certain levels, but it doesn't have the same impact to me. And I think it's just because I was a different person when I wrote
Right.
that book. It was a
Yeah.
different time, a different place, and I am now somebody else because I've evolved with my stories as well.
Hmm.
So I really love that idea, and I might have to steal it. So
100%. There's no intellectual property here, so we're all,
it's like I think I might add it into but the first screenplay I sell. I'll
yeah.
make sure I have that and make a little note to myself. And I now have a TV pilot in my show Bible. I'll make a little note to myself. So
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah,
this could
no,
be. I
well,
like this.
it's good to celebrate those little victories. And again, I don't, it's not putting down the fact that it does those things don't mean as much to you, but it's like anything in life. First time you experience something, you can't bottle that. You're never gonna get that feeling. That's how I equate it to like the Body Man. I'd worked so damn hard to get that book out. And that was the fourth book I wrote. It wasn't like, man, I wrote this first book and it was so great and it had to get published and it took 5 years to get published. No, this was me trying to publish the first book for get an agent for the first 2 years. While that was happening, I wrote the second book. While that was then getting not anywhere, I wrote the third book. And it was finally when all those rejections for those first three books were taking place is when I was like, okay, you need to just go somewhere different. Totally different series, totally different concept. And that's where and I've told the story many times, that's where I was at the cleaning job. I used to do a fire sprinkler company, which if anyone reads The Body Man, there's an aviation company called Dybaco. Well, I used to clean a fire sprinkler company in Dana, North Carolina, which is probably still there. So shout out to Dybaco. And that's where I came up with the concept of the body man. I was working one night. I got in the building. You had to turn off the alarm the first thing. And as I turned off the alarm and I was drive up, I was like, I need to come up with a concept of a new book because I'm not selling. I've got three written. They're not getting picked up. I'm not getting an agent. And so I turned off that alarm and I just had this thought run through my brain that said, there's always someone who knows where the bodies are buried. And that was my go. My go stick went boom. I got it going by the end of that night, which 2.5, 3 hours later of me doing probably a lousy job of cleaning the place as well. I had the concept for the body man down. And so that was 2017, maybe. I mean, so you're talking now, that's long, 8 years ago, probably that I came up with that idea. And that's where the universe began, basically, for writing for what would then come out.
So basically, what I'm hearing is we need to put you in more menial tasks so you can come up with more ideas and write more books.
No, I think you need to send me like GoFundMe to Dubai and Hong Kong and Thailand and South America. I actually have an invitation for Brazil. I might do Brazil in every other Thanksgiving. I don't have the kids, and I've told you this before, and I've said it in the podcast. My rule is leave the country and spend Thanksgiving Day in a country you've never been to. So the last two Thanksgivings have been in Dublin, Ireland, and Cardiff, Wales. Not the last two. The last two I didn't have the kids. So um, this year I'll have the kids. 2026 I won't. Of course, that will be right after the big trip to New Zealand and Australia. So I'll probably need to GoFundMe for that as well because that'll break the bank. But I have an open invitation to go down to Brazil for Thanksgiving from a friend of mine's actually a missionary, and he said, "Hey, I know you leave the country every other. Why don't you come to Brazil and come see me in Brazil?" So that's if I can swing a trip to even a 3 day jaunt down to Brazil, I might do that. So we'll see.
Well, you got time to learn the language. It's Portuguese, I think. So,
I think I'm too old to learn a new language, but sure.
oh, no, 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 no,
They got
no,
great
no.
apps here that you go, tell Ama I'm too old to learn a language, and it will say, Parlez-vous français? Blah, 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 blah. It'll just do it all for you. So we're
We're
good.
gonna have to train that AI to tell you you're full of crap. You can do anything.
You
Speaking
can.
of, you've branched out at different genres and different mediums now. Any plans to continue dabbling in other formats?
Um, yeah, I'd like to. I'd like to, but I think I'm just like we were talking about earlier. I'm at that saturation point where it's just kind of like, okay, there's so many eggs up in the air. Which ones am I gonna let drop? So I don't know if I can throw a couple more in there, but I think at some point it's kind of I'm kind of flushing things out now and just trying to find a better balance with everything. And I think as Bruce goes off to college, that's going to change the dynamic. So I'm used to, having, two kids here, 14, 15 days a month. I'm going to have one kid here. That's going to be weird in a way. I mean, really weird. I'm going to have one kid. And then maybe every weekend, one weekend a month, I'm driving up to see him in college. That's what he says. Now I have a feeling he'll get up to college and he'll be like, hey, what's up,
Dad, why are you
Google?
here? Yeah.
Good to see you. See you at Christmas. So, and if he does, I can't fault him because I keep trying to remind myself now that I have a over 18-year-old that how often did you hang out with your parents after you turned 18? And I mean, not terribly often. That's why,
Yeah, it's going to be a different dynamic because then all you have is a teenage girl. So again, how much do teenage girls hang out with their dads?
I know.
I say
I
Aria turns 13 at the end of the month, and I'm just lucky that she still likes me.
she still likes you. If you keep taking her to Shinedown shows, you probably got the in. So they just need to keep touring, which I have on good authority. They'll be on the road the next couple of years. So just
So
have
I have a saving grace, is what you're telling me.
you just have $1,000 weekend flying around the country to be a Shinedown follower, basically, and bring your mini me with you. So and then you're covered.
Well, I told her I was going to New Orleans for BoucherCon, and she's like, "Oh, can I go?" I'm like, "You'll be in school." She's like, "So?"
Yeah, I was talking to someone about that the other day, and I kind of I wish I was going. I wanted to go. It happens to the timing on it's just has been crappy. I went like 3 years ago to Minneapolis. Three? Yeah, I think it was 3 years ago now. I forgot where they were last year. Last year didn't maybe San Diego. Last year didn't, or the year before was San Diego.
Last year was Nashville, and San Diego was
Nashville.
the year
Okay,
before
San
that.
Diego was the
Yeah.
year before. They seem to be hitting the last couple of years on something that's either not movable or for this one, it's hitting on Noelle's 14th birthday. So yes, I could stay. And I told her about it. She goes, "Go to New Orleans," and I'm like, I don't want to miss you. And so I'd have to fly out on Sunday or Saturday. If I'm gonna fly out on Saturday to Sunday, that's so stupid to go for 24 hours. It's just not. So instead, I'm probably take that money and go do a book tour over in Europe. So
Say,
it
I
probably
don't know.
better
It
for
depends on
promotion.
which 24 hours. You come down there while I'm there. I can promise you, I will make sure I dump you on the plane so you can make it back. But I can't guarantee what kind of condition you'll be in. But we'll make sure you make your flight.
I had a good drunken evening in New Orleans the year that they canceled BoucherCon because of COVID. About a month out, they canceled it, and there was a resurgence. One of the variations was kicking back up, Omicron or whatever one at the time. I don't even know. Um, so they canceled it. I had already paid for everything, and I was at that point already writing Breach of Trust, and I knew I wanted to set a key scene in Cafe Du Monde. I had already kind of figured it out, but I didn't want to just do it off pictures.
It's one
So
of my favorite places.
I went anyways, and I'm so glad I went. Although the Irma or Erna, whatever the hurricane came in and almost got stranded there for a week. I got out I booked the last flight or switched the last flight I could get. It wasn't the last flight out, but it was the last day before they closed the airport. Um, but one of those nights there, I went out. I went on a ghost tour by myself. Jack Stewart had actually met
Yep.
me down there,
Yes.
and we did
I've done that by myself, and it's still totally worth it.
Oh, I was well. What was fun was that night was on the ghost tour. There was probably about 20 people, and they were normally groups or couples. So I was the only like totally by themselves person. And so the guy that was heading up the ghost tour was a total character. I can't remember his name now. He reminded me of my ex-brother-in-law, just the way he looked and personality. So we clicked really well, and we chatted, and at the end of it, he knew I was there by myself. He's like, "You want to go to like a local dive bar and go hang out, with some other people?" He goes, "I know some locals. So you're here by yourself." I was like, "Yeah, sure." So we went and closed that place down. So we were there till like 2 in the morning. Somehow I got back to the Marriott without getting robbed, beaten, whatever. I avoided Bourbon Street. Is probably why I went. I circumvented that street, which, but yeah. I felt it in the morning, but it was still fun. I got, it was a great. I think the next day I drove up to Biloxi, Mississippi. I wanted to like go up the coast, so I got a rental car, went up. That's when I found out, hey, the hurricane's going to hit. They're going to close the airport. And I called American Airlines, I think was the airlines, and I'm like, I was on hold, and they're like, we have one flight we can get you on, Mr. Bishop, 6 a.m. tomorrow morning out of the airport. This is I'll end this with this is the irony of life. So I've traveled a lot. Obviously, if you looked at my adventure page, I've been to a few places, but I'm a working class person. I'm not some privileged person that's got to fly private planes, first class, and all that. I mean, I've been on a lot of planes, but I've flown a lot of coach flights, even international. I've been stuck in middle seats going over to Europe. Um, so on the flight to New Orleans, I decided to upgrade. The day before the trip, or 2 days for the trip, I got the email from American said, "Hey, for $79 you want to upgrade to first class," or some like ridiculously low number. And I'm like, hell yeah. So I flew in first class. We had a great group. We were all drinking. We had this great crew on this first class section we were in on the flight into New Orleans. So on the flight out, which had obviously I had to switch my plane, switch my flight and all that, I was last row, middle seat, across from the bathroom. So I was like, that's the bookends of life. You fly into a city on first class, drinking Tito's and lemonade and having some fun and giving out free bottles. Uh, and then on the flight out, you're last seat or last row, middle seat next to the toilet, just getting out before a hurricane comes. It's like, that's life right there. That is how you sum up life. So
That is an excellent analogy, and I love it. So, any parting words for your captive audience?
I hope they give Supreme Justice a chance. Again, Merci carries this story, and I hope she carries her ruckload. I think she does a good job with this. Um, the only spoiler I'll give is you will not see the. It's not the end of Merci, and it's not the end of the Body Man. So I've got definitely have some audacious plans for both of them, and yeah, we'll see where the series goes. The next one again, in the end of the book, I tell you where we're going next, and if you read. Supreme Justice, you kind of get an inkling of what's happening with the Body Man because it picks up basically right at the end of Breach of Trust, and that's going on during this. So when we flip to book four, um, those events will be occurring that happen in book three. So it'll kind of be you getting more of the detail of what actually was occurring, and then. I know where book five's going to go. Book five probably is going to be another one of the minor characters that's kind of going to get a highlight. So trying to do stuff like that with this. I'm trying to keep it fresh. I have the control aspect of I can take this series where I want. I don't have someone kind of bossing me around, telling me what to do, which I like that. So and I hope the readers enjoy. So far they've stuck with me and I've been growing the reader base and that's a blessing. And I'm gonna try to keep entertaining them with each book and how long the series will go and where I'll go. Stick with me, we'll find out.
As a fan, I will absolutely be doing that. And I'll be watching for the next Omega group too, because I might have to hunt you down if you end things before I get a little bit more Charlie. So,
I can give you a super early hint on that. It is a backstory for Troy Evans. So every kind of main character has a past, and so we're going to explore his past because Troy was on a path to be just like his father and be an FBI agent and run his own field office. Want to be just like his dad, be a special agent in charge, and an event all of us know happened, and that changed Troy's future. And we're going to explore in that book what happened, why it happened, and how Troy came out on the other side.
now there's some intrigue.
Yeah, you're the first one to hear
Ooh.
this, actually. So
Yes. All right. So
that'll be book
I
three.
steal your podcast and then I get an inside scoop. That's what I'm talking about. So, thank you so much for spending some time with me and allowing me to interview you. I mean, I guess you could have sat here with a mirror and probably just talked to yourself for a while. I mean, because we all have voices in our head, and you probably could have had a pretty in-depth conversation. But something tells me this worked a little bit better.
I think you're a much better host than I'd be a host for myself, for sure. So
Well,
if
hopefully everybody enjoyed this. Is there anything else you want to touch on before I allow you to take back control of your show?
since I'm filming another episode tonight, thank you. I'm glad you're allowing me. I'm sure my guest that I'm filming later tonight will be glad that I'm back. Actually, they probably, honestly, this guest, you actually know who this person is, and they would rather have you interview. They'd rather have a lovely lady interview than me. So this
Well,
person,
you could always change how you identify. You put on a wig, get you a little bit of makeup, you'll be good.
all I'll have to say to that is Supreme Justice is out on July 15th, an ebook, paperback, and hardcover. What you see is what you get. If you don't like it, oh well.
Uh,
That's
it is
that's how it
it
comes.
is absolutely worth reading. Everybody, please take my word for it. Pick up Supreme Justice. Mercy is a great story. And take a breath. There is an author's note. Do not kill the author because if you do, we will not get the next part of the story. And I need it desperately. So, Eric, keep churning them out. And if there's anything I can do for you, you know where to find me.
If you don't like how it ends, buy a couple more copies and give copies out to people you know and see if they like how it ends. How's that? Thank you, Ama.
Anytime, man.